787 Dreamliner has a stellar safety record. This is the first fatal crash. So what could have gone wrong?
The crash of Air India Flight 171, operated by a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, has sparked an unprecedented wave of scrutiny across the aviation world. The incident, which unfolded just seconds after takeoff from Ahmedabad on June 12, 2025, has not only raised immediate concerns about aircraft reliability and pilot performance, but has also triggered deep questions about the aviation ecosystem in India and the global aviation framework at large. With 271 lives lost, including 241 on board and over 30 individuals on the ground, this tragedy stands as a painful reminder of the high stakes involved in air travel, even in an age defined by advanced safety protocols and highly automated aircraft. The implications are both technical and human, with every piece of wreckage and black box data pointing toward a broader narrative of systemic vulnerability. Initial findings suggest that the Dreamliner experienced a sudden and catastrophic power loss mere moments after takeoff. Eyewitness reports and preliminary data confirmed that the aircraft failed to gain sustainable altitude, instead descending rapidly before crashing into a densely populated neighborhood. The rapid deployment of the RAM air turbine, an emergency power generator that activates only in the event of total electrical or engine failure, has led investigators to focus on possible simultaneous engine shutdowns or a severe hydraulic malfunction. That the landing gear remained extended throughout the flight further indicates that vital systems were compromised immediately after liftoff. This has steered the investigation toward potential issues with engine synchronization, hydraulic pressure, and control surface functionality, factors that are critical during the climb-out phase. The black boxes, including both the cockpit voice recorder and the digital flight data recorder, have been successfully retrieved and are undergoing detailed analysis by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau of India, working in collaboration with UK and US counterparts. These data sources are expected to offer crucial insights into what decisions the flight crew made during the final seconds, and whether those decisions were hindered by faulty indicators, delayed response, or inadequate training. While Captain Sumit Sabharwal brought over 8,000 hours of flight experience to the cockpit and First Officer Clive Kund had logged more than 1,000 hours, even seasoned pilots may be rendered helpless in the face of sudden cascading system failures, especially during the takeoff phase, which allows little margin for error. Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, the sole survivor, offers a living thread in this tapestry of loss. Seated in row 11A, his recollection of waking up amidst the wreckage, disoriented but alive, highlights both the brutality and improbability of survival in such high-impact scenarios. His escape, accomplished without rescue teams but through sheer presence of mind, has since been widely publicized, not as an emblem of miracle alone, but as a contrast to the many lives that were irreversibly altered or extinguished in that same instant. In a nation where aviation aspirations have surged in recent years, his experience casts a long, sobering shadow on the cost of systemic breakdown. The broader investigation has gone well beyond the mechanical dimensions of the crash. Audits into Air India's operational protocols uncovered troubling deviations from regulatory norms. In particular, a BBC report revealed that pilots had operated flights exceeding legally allowed duty periods in the weeks leading up to the accident. These violations are not minor paperwork issues, but serious infractions with potential implications for pilot alertness, judgment, and performance. Regulatory bodies responded swiftly by firing 3 officials and conducting fleet-wide inspections of Boeing 787 aircraft, signaling an effort to re-establish public trust. However, critics argue that such reactive measures are insufficient in the absence of enduring reforms that address not only compliance but also organizational culture and safety prioritization. Amid the ruins, financial compensation emerged as an immediate, albeit incomplete, response to grieving families. Tata Group, which owns Air India, alongside the airline itself, offered interim payments and committed to Montreal Convention mandated compensations. Ground victims' families were also promised equivalent settlements. In addition to monetary relief, psychological support systems were mobilized. Counseling centers, mental health specialists, and NGO collaborations aimed to address the long-term trauma experienced by survivors, emergency responders, and families alike. The emotional aftermath for many will outlast investigations, policy changes, and even memorial dedications. The crash also revealed significant gaps in urban planning and zoning enforcement. The Mayani Nagar neighborhood into which the aircraft descended had previously been identified as vulnerable in past safety assessments due to its proximity to the runway. Despite prior recommendations, no concrete actions were taken to adjust the flight path or relocate at-risk residential and institutional structures. The aircraft's final trajectory saw it collide directly into a hospital block and a student hostel, locations teeming with individuals either asleep or on duty. This urban density, so close to the airport's boundary, greatly magnified the scale of loss and has reignited debates among urban planners, airport authorities, and policymakers about the need for reinforced no-construction zones near airfields. Even as rescue operations were praised for their speed, logistical constraints in the neighborhood complicated access to wreckage zones. Narrow alleyways, traffic congestion, and spontaneous gatherings of bystanders hindered the swift deployment of fire services and medical responders. Forensic teams worked around the clock, often using dental records, DNA analysis, and personal belongings to identify remains. In some cases, families were given symbolic coffins containing only recognizable items, an item of clothing, a wristwatch, a pendant, because physical remains were unidentifiable or unrecoverable. In the weeks following the incident, international reaction ranged from shock to regulatory reassessment. Boeing, the aircraft manufacturer, saw its stock dip notably as concerns mounted about the Dreamliner's reliability. GE Aerospace, responsible for the engines, also came under intense scrutiny. While initial reports ruled out flat mispositioning or control surface errors, ongoing inspections are delving into more subtle malfunctions that might have escaped pre-flight checks. Air India's entire 787 fleet was temporarily grounded for inspection, and although no global bans have been issued, insurers have begun recalibrating policies, some estimating the claim from this crash could exceed $475 million, making it one of the costliest aviation claims in a decade. At the policy level, the crash has triggered a reevaluation of the Directorate General of Civil Aviation's dual role as both regulator and promoter of the aviation industry. This inherent conflict of interest has long existed in the background, but has now surged to the forefront of public discourse. A panel of retired safety officers and aviation experts has advocated for the creation of an independent body akin to the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, with complete autonomy from government and airline influence. Their recommendations include real-time transparency and safety audits, publicly accessible pilot fatigue records, and mandatory third-party reviews of maintenance logs. In Gurugram, Air India's headquarters has become the nucleus of introspection. Although operational changes are underway, including weekly audits of maintenance logs, restructuring of pilot rosters, and cross-certification of engineering staff, the deeper transformation lies in shifting internal culture. Safety slogans now emblazon walls and simulator rooms, attempting to instill a mindset of vigilance. However, critics question whether this is performative or truly transformational, pointing out that similar efforts in the past were often short-lived, implemented under duress rather than from genuine commitment. Perhaps the most haunting legacy of this disaster is its symbolic permanence. The airline swiftly retired the flight number AI-171, acknowledging the emotional weight it carried. Plans for a permanent memorial are already in motion, a circular stone installation engraved with the names of the victims, a solar-powered eternal flame, and artifacts from passengers sealed into its foundation. These include ballet shoes, a graduation certificate, a stethoscope, and a wristwatch frozen at 6:19 a.m. The moment the aircraft ceased to be airborne, these physical mementos will stand in silent testimony to the individual lives that were part of a broader institutional failure. The educational impact has also been swift and far-reaching. Aviation academies worldwide are incorporating Flight 171's final moments into simulator training programs, not for sensational purposes but as case studies in emergency decision-making. Instructors emphasize multi-system failure scenarios, pilot mental readiness, and procedural discipline under pressure. The goal is not merely to train better pilots, but to challenge assumptions within system design, coordination protocols, and response timing. Lessons learned here could become benchmarks for a new generation of aviators trained under the shadow of this calamity. Meanwhile, the economic aftershocks continue to ripple through the industry. Aircraft leasing firms are reviewing all documentation for 787s operated by Air India, while some international airlines have reconsidered existing code-sharing agreements. Insurers have introduced stricter underwriting criteria for Indian carriers, and the global supply chain, from parts manufacturers to fuel suppliers, is re-examining standard operating procedures. Though aviation in India is expected to grow significantly, this crash represents a fault line, a jarring separation between optimistic projections and the current operational reality. The social ramifications are equally profound. Indian embassies in cities such as London, Toronto, and Sydney have hosted memorials and interfaith vigils. These gatherings are not just acts of mourning, but expressions of solidarity, grief transcending borders, and reaffirmations of global interconnectedness. Families scattered across continents have found in each other a shared language of loss. Out of this collective sorrow has emerged the 171 Families Coalition for Air Safety, a grassroots group advocating for legislative changes. Their demands are sweeping: public release of safety records, independent grievance redressal mechanisms, stricter oversight on pilot rest periods, and greater involvement of passengers in regulatory discussions. Amid all of this, perhaps the most crucial realization is the fragility not just of flight, but of the systems that underpin it: technical, administrative, regulatory, and cultural. Each link in the chain, when compromised, increases the risk of tragedy. The Dreamliner, once hailed for its innovation and safety, is now the focal point of a painful global reckoning. Air India, under Tata's stewardship, had been positioned as a symbol of Indian aviation's revival, but this event has disrupted that narrative, revealing layers of issues that cannot be smoothed over by rebranding or public relations. The ultimate challenge for aviation stakeholders, be they engineers, regulators, pilots, or executives, is not to weather the storm of one tragedy, but to build resilient systems that prevent the next. The Flight 171 disaster has already reshaped conversations within cockpit briefings, maintenance hangars, civil aviation boardrooms, and even legislative chambers. Its echoes will not fade with the news cycle. They will endure in every revised protocol, every training manual update, every policy amendment, and in the lives of those who wake each day without loved ones. At the core of this tragedy lies a single sobering question: can the aviation industry evolve fast enough to match the scale of its ambitions? If safety is to be more than a slogan, it must be lived in real decisions, in enforced standards, and in the courage to admit and correct failures before they lead to catastrophe. For now, the world watches and waits as black box data turns into evidence, evidence into policy, and policy into practice. Only then will the weight of loss begin to transform into the hope of future protection. The true measure of change will not be found in headlines or quarterly reports, but in the quiet assurance felt by passengers, the confidence of families, families and the integrity of those entrusted with lives thousands of feet above the earth.